I often think the streets of New York are flex spaces. One day a street could have cars, buses, and trucks running on them. Then the next it could be used by cyclists of the 5-borough bus tour or runners of the New York City Marathon. It could be blocked off for a parade, a market, or people wanting to voice their hearts out. In this city, streets are more than just a passageway for vehicles. Streets are valuable public spaces. In any city, public space is important for a community to become a community, to see each other and know that there are other people that exist in the neighborhood. I feel that even though you don't talk to people at a park or any other public space, just seeing people out in the world helps alleviate a sense of loneliness. People are interesting to look at. That's why there's a thing called people watching. And while a city can have parks and plazas as public spaces for people to gather, an open street is more accessible and novel. Because it's not that common to see streets blocked off from cars and other vehicles, at least in the United States. There's something about open streets that make people come and enjoy it. Years back, I was living in Monterey, California, which is a small town in coastal California. It really is a small town, but it's a nice small town. At the time, and they still could be doing it today, every Tuesday afternoon they would block off a main street and it would become an open street market. I would often walk over there to buy peaches, sample the almonds, and eat a kebab. There was something so attractive about this. Yeah, I could get peaches from a local Safeway, but there was something special about getting peaches straight from the peach grower. And eating street food in a marketplace and watching strangers do their thing was my own personal therapy. And the fact that this happened once a week made it novel enough for me to make an event out of it. And that was my first introduction to open street. Up until I moved to New York, I always thought that this was just common in small towns. But I've come to learn that New York is a small town of 8 million people. New York has an open street program, and it's not just one street. In this city, there are 160 open streets, altogether spanning 300 blocks. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the open streets of New York City. Welcome to Urban Caffeine. My name is Thea, and you're watching a channel that talks about public transit, urbanism, and living a comfortable life in an extremely dense city. If you like these topics, make sure you're subscribed. And also, hit the like button so that this video can get pushed to other viewers. The New York Open Streets program consists of the Department of Transportation working with local organizations in different neighborhoods to open up streets to pedestrians by prohibiting cars and other vehicles. Some of these streets are permanent and are open year-round, all day, every day, while some are only seasonal. An open street can be as small as just 1 block, while the longest one is 1.25 miles long. But it's more than just blocking off a street from cars and calling it a day. With the DOT working with local organizations, there's community programming that complements the open street. And activities that happen on these streets are normally free. The DOT has a full list of all the open streets in New York, and link to this website is in the description. New York also has a Summer Streets program, which is happening now actually as this video publishes. This is when the city shuts down long stretches of streets so people can walk, bike, or hang out. The longest stretch is in Manhattan, from the Brooklyn Bridge all the way to Harlem. This encourages people to ride bikes or other alternative forms of transportation. I'm actually planning to go to the summer streets this year and just renting out a city bike and biking the whole length of Manhattan. But this only happens on select Saturdays. So if you live in New York, this is your chance to bike the heart of Manhattan traffic-free, especially around Midtown and downtown. But know that whenever a new open street is born, not everybody rejoices. I rejoice, and I'm sure other urbanism fans rejoice, but not everyone. If you can remember this video I made on Newark Avenue, which is an open street in Jersey City. When it first opened up, some people were apprehensive. Businesses were scared that they'll lose customers because they won't be able to drive right in front of their shop. People were angry that they were losing 15 parking spots. And a lot of people were worried that traffic would just get worse because they're blocking off a major road. Years later, this very street has become a major highlight in Jersey City. It's even won an award. And I honestly can't see it ever going back. It's the same with Times Square. Times Square didn't always have its pedestrian plaza, which is a closed-off portion of Broadway. Could you just imagine that? Could you imagine Times Square without its plaza? With all the people going to Times Square, I can't imagine it not having its open street. Yet, when they decided to just try it out and close off this portion of Broadway at Times Square, which would eventually turn into the plaza that we know today, there was some protests. Of course, people got over it, and now the plaza at Times Square is indispensable. But point being is that it's not always obvious to people how an open street is extremely good for a city. And there will always be naysayers when inaugurating a new open street. So to argue against pushbacks, let's talk about the benefits of an open street. The first is economic development. If there's no other way to win an argument, remember that money speaks. When a street is open, it brings foot traffic to stores that line it, and therefore bring in business. This is especially true for businesses that sell small indulgences like coffee, bubble milk, or ice cream. Not only does it bring customers to local businesses, but it gives customers a chance to connect with that local business. Remember those peaches in Monterey, California? I never bought peaches at the local grocery store. I always bought my peaches from Debbie, the peach grower. My peach grower. Next is community involvement. Not only is an open street a place to hang out, play games, or listen to street performers, it's also a place to actually connect and learn about the community. Organizations sometimes put up tables and tents as a way to have a presence and educate anyone passing by about what they do and how they help the community. Sometimes I would get a free plant from Parks and Recreation folks. There was this one time, one of the libraries on wheels was parked and they renewed my library card then and there. That's notable and that made me happy because I used my library card to get free passes to museums in the city. And it was such a pleasure to just walk down a neighborhood street and get my library card renewed. I didn't have to go online and figure out how to renew it. So that was nice. Sometimes local representatives come to these open streets to talk and meet with people. And I'm not just talking about your representative in the Senate or Congress. I'm talking about hyper-local reps like council reps or district representatives. People that can concern themselves with these everyday things that affect you directly, like broken signs, potholes, trash bins in your communities, those flower pots that you see, the everyday things in your neighborhood that affect your daily life. And we come to connecting with people and culture. In a place where there are 8 million other people, that alone doesn't guarantee you'll make connections. It's easy to be invisible in a city this dense. There needs to be a space where people can gather, a right place where connection can happen. And not only make connections, but also learn about the local culture. I can't stress enough just how diverse New York is. I could be walking down the street lined with Polish bakeries and around the corner be eating at a Mexican donut place. So the public programs that you see on these open streets sometimes reflect the local culture of that neighborhood. It could be a local school band performing from a school nearby, or a local art studio offering a free watercoloring class. And lastly, a great benefit to having open streets is the extra space. If it hasn't been stressed enough in other videos I've made on this channel, in New York, it's a given that you're going to be living in a smaller home compared to everyone else in the United States. Space is precious in the city, so the more of it to lounge around or stroll through is rich. Especially during the pandemic, open streets and parks kept people sane. New York open streets have been around for years, but the pandemic only highlighted how well open streets help in maintaining a healthy well-being in the city. Whether it's a small town like Monterey or a megacity like New York, every settlement can benefit from an open street. It doesn't have to be permanent. it could be weekly, or maybe seasonal. If you follow me on social media, I post open streets as I find them, sometimes even in other cities. I'm on most of all the social media platforms out there: Facebook, Instagram, Bluesky, Threads, and Twitter, which is now X. So if you haven't already, make sure to follow Urban Caffeine on social media to discover more open streets. And if you often go to an open street in your neighborhood, comment down below and tell us about it. And if you want extra content, I provide vlogs in Patreon or via YouTube membership. I talk about what it's like being a creator and things that I do in New York City. So check that out at patreon.com/urbancaffeine or clicking the join button of this channel. With that, thank you so much for watching and happy New Yorking.